morning, everyone. So first, let me explain what is a basic. All right. So a broker dealer is a company in the business of buying and selling securities for itself or investors. Okay, so you can think of us as the bridge between the exchange and the market and the investors. Okay, because an investor cannot go directly to a business and say they want to invest. They have to go through a broker dealer, and that's where we come in. Okay, so our primary functions or role, we discuss investment objectives with you, your goals, your cash flow needs. We assess your risk appetite, the time horizon, your risk tolerance. We also offer investment recommendations to you, right? Whether it be mutual fund, bonds, long-term, short-term investments. And we open and maintain your brokerage account and your ECSC registry as well. So we collect your application, we fund your account, and we execute the trade on your behalf. And then we provide you with confirmation of your investment, so you know what you're investing and what you have. So those are our roles.
So in the form, if you want to onboard a client, right? Tell us what is the onboarding process, and like for a new investor, let's say the new investor is a firm, what is the process for that firm?
Okay, so at First Citizens, we put our investors first. All right. So when a firm or individual comes into our business, we sit and we have a conversation first. Right? This conversation, we want to know your investment goals. Is it you want to get new equipment, expand the business, hire someone? We go about in that way. So we start the investment process with some account opening documents. Okay, so for a business, you will need a corporate registry forms for the directors. This is for us to know the customer. This is what we call a KYC. This is where you know your clients. Some people ask, why you need so much documents or so much information, the long process? But we have to know the customer, okay? So it might be for a business, you will need their financial statements to know their standings. We need to know if someone is a director with more than 10% shares. We need this information, okay? So once we have this information, we start the account opening process, the application. Your account is open. If it's on the ECSC, you have an account opening form. We fill that out, we send it to them, they approve your account. But the process doesn't stop there, okay? It's an ongoing process. It's not you come in today, you open the account, and we don't hear from you until next year. No, it's an every day, every week. So it's an ongoing process.
So tell us about that ongoing process, because it's critical.
Mhm.
Because, for example, I come and invest, let's say $100,000, right? And I know it's an annual thing. Maybe you give me 1 year. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Or 2
So
years?
it's a fixed income and you have 1 year.
Fixing, right? So do you touch base with me as an investor on a regular basis, and why?
Yes, so we touch base on you on a regular basis because risks change, okay? The environment changes. So you may want to know, is my investment still doing well? Is it up? Is it down? Is it fixed? So that constant communication is needed between the investor and the broker.
Okay. I will not want to, of course, give me, let's say, a rate of what, 5%. And then I realize market change, things looking up, and there's about a 6%, and you ain't call me and tell me what's happening,
Right.
I'll be very disappointed as a client and as an investor, So I guess relationship, is important as well,
Yes,
right?
that's very important.
Okay, great. So just before we move back to Mr. Burnett, I want to ask you something though. So how do you help your clients develop personalized investment strategies based on their financial goals? What is the process?
So at First Citizens, we have what we call SMART goals for individuals. These goals must be specific, they must be measurable, they must be attainable, realistic, and time-bound, right? So if an investor comes in a specific goal will be they want to raise a set amount of money in a set time frame. Okay, so we say, okay, your goals, this will require you for a fixed investment, not something that goes up and down in the market. And you say 5% for the year, okay. So then we target you in that sense. Then we look at your risk tolerance. Some people are risky,
Yeah.
some are not. So some people say, oh, I'm willing to risk only $500. I don't want to ever drop by 500, call me like that. But others are willing to say, I'm not, if it falls by 500, I'm not worried, right? So there are different risk tolerance in that. Okay, your current financial status. We look at that in terms of your budget, if you have an upcoming obligation. So we help you in that sense as well. So we align the investor goals and your profile with the product that we offer at First Citizen. And it's adjusted based on your needs. As we say, it's an ongoing relationship. So we help you develop in that sense. Okay?
Okay, great. So, Jerron, let's say I inherited some funds, right? And I have those funds in a savings account. I did my estate administration, and now everything is in that specific account. Now, how can you move me from being just saving to investing? What educational initiatives the exchange has implemented to guide savers like myself to transition into investing?
All right. So this session that we're having now is one of the initiatives that we have and that we put on in the recent past, to make individuals aware of the opportunities for investing in the market. The purpose is just to put the information out there, because as we go around and we interact with investors and we hear from our broker dealers, we get the sense that there's a lot of interest, but there's also a lack of information out there. So these sessions are geared towards reaching out to the public to provide them with the information that they need to understand the market and build the courage to actually make that transition from taking the money out of your savings account, putting it into the market to generate the wealth and earn the returns that are available in the market. This morning, we had the prize giving ceremony for a regional schools investment competition, which is another initiative that we've undertaken. Recently, the second one, the prize giving this morning for the second one. So we started reaching out to the students at third form, fourth form, and first year college students at that young age to give them the information as well, so that as they get older, get to young adults and have access to their own money, that they see investing in the market as something that is important for them to start doing at a very young age. Working with our broker dealers, over time we will also roll out different initiatives to reach the various potential investors or existing investors to encourage them to utilize the market more often.
I think we should start from Formula 1. Huh? I'm serious. I mean, you train a tree while it's young, right?
Yeah.
And I think we should really start, teaching our children, first how to save from one, and even investing. It's important, because what I've realized, but some schools in St. Vincent does it, because they do have the credit union within the school component where they have their little investment thing going on there. But I think more schools need to do that, because the younger you start training the children, the importance of saving and investing, I think you're looking at a more prosperous tomorrow, persons who are well-rounded and know what they're about. But I just want to go further, like you did mention. What types of investment products are available on the exchange that help individuals achieve their financial goals?
So currently we have securities that are issued by governments from the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Treasury bills would be short-term security that investors could get into, ranging from 91 days all the way up to 365 days. We also have government bonds, which are more long-term security that they can invest in if they have a longer-term horizon, are willing to invest their money for a longer period of time. We also have treasury notes, which is in the middle, in between the treasury bills and the government bonds. On the corporate side, we facilitate the trading of equity. So companies like Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a listed company. Investors can purchase shares in those companies and become a part owner of the company. Once you're a part owner, you can benefit from dividends if the company does well and the directors declare a dividend. or you could benefit from the appreciation in the price of the share. And then when you sell it, you can earn a return that way.
Okay, great. Very, very interesting. There's some of us though we are a little more apprehensive with certain things, right? So I'm going to move right back to my final risk tolerance, right? So how do you help your clients assess their risk tolerance, and why do you think it's important in the investing process?
Okay. So let's define risk tolerance, right? Some people are conservative, some are moderately conservative, some are looking for growth and passive income. So those we consider aggressive investors. Yeah, they love the stock market, the thrill of it, the up and down, right? So at First Citizens, we have a risk profile that you fill out. Okay, it's a series of questions along your timeline. So if you are looking to invest for a longer period of time, we consider you somewhat a little conservative, but yeah, a little risky. Then there is inflation that we take into consideration if the person wants to outpace inflation. Because if you sit and your money is at a standstill and inflation keeps rising, then that can be an issue as well, right? We ask you about, if a share price falls, what will you do as a person? Will you buy more at the lower price? Will you buy a higher price? What would you do as a person? Will you pull your money from the market? You don't want your money decreasing, and then we go about your investment knowledge. We help give you that knowledge. We provide information about the products that we offer. Jaron would have mentioned the treasury bonds and the treasury bills, right? We tell you exactly what these are. For example, a bond, it's fixed. Okay, so, and those pay out semi-annually. So the rate can go up tomorrow or down tomorrow. Okay, so when you come to that risk tolerance, that person will be like, okay, this sounds like I'm a conservative person. I prefer a bond, right? When it comes to a growth person or a person that's aggressive, he mentioned as well, the ECSC has mutual funds. The UTC mutual fund and the Bank of St. Lucia mutual fund, those are recently launched as brokers. We sell those to our clients as well. So those are more for someone who would see the share price go up today, the stock market is doing okay, and they want to invest and grow their money and compound interest. So that is where the aggressive person comes in. Okay, and your risk tolerance, as I say, it's very important to investors, because you ask why is it important to the investing process? Because it determines what products you invest in. Yes, as an older person who is retiring, they want to preserve their money. They don't work, they already worked a number of years, they're 60, 70, about to retire, but you want to live off of that money. So that person will be considered a conservative person. They don't want to lose their money. So you go in and recommend a bond to them, something that's fixed, and give them. And as I say, a young person, you go ahead and you recommend something a little more risky, and we go from there, aggressive. So that's where the risk tolerance comes into the investment process.
Great. So for our listening audience, of course, for those who are new to investing, their first time they're listening to this discussion, and they may have an interest in investing. As I said, they may have some funds, sitting there for a long time, not doing anything with it, or just come across some generational wealth. So what are the initial steps will you recommend that individual or those individuals to take?
Okay, so the first step would be to speak to a licensed advisor, not someone you hear on the street telling you stock price is going up, or you're listening to the news and you see the stock price is going down. You don't have that knowledge. So the first step, speak to a licensed advisor. So we have to go through a licensing process that makes sure we are integrity. We have that, so we be honest with persons. Right? That's one of our core principles. So you have to be honest with yourself and your advisor. Being honest means we have to know your debt to income ratio. Being honest means you don't know how to budget. That's where we come in. We help you budget. Being honest means you have an emergency fund, you don't have an emergency fund. You have a base, you don't have a base. You can't start investing without income. You need a starting point, right? So if you need help in that budgeting sense, you come in, you speak with us, We help you go through that process. We explain the products that are there for you. You might not, some people, they don't immediately jump out at it. So we take your information, we have follow-up calls with you. If you want to see how the market is doing, you have a figure in mind. You want to see a projection of this money. We work through that projection with you. Say, okay, after 5 years, this will be your return. You say, okay, Mr. David, I want something a little more risky. After 3 years, 6 years, this can be your return. So the process for someone who is now starting, you come, you speak to us. You say, okay, I like what you have to offer. What is the next step? Okay, we have the application process. So you require 2 forms of ID, your passport, a driver's license, national ID. You have a proof of address to be, if you're renting, a lease agreement from the renter, copy of their IDs, a utility bill with their name on it. Your source of funds can be bank statement, a job letter, recent pay slip. Your account is open. And when your account is open, then you have full access to all the information. We send out emails about everything. The ECSC, they do their daily reports that shows that what stocks are sold on the market. They offer you a little advice at the end. Would tell you about what is inflation, what is the interest rate, what are tariffs. They offer you that little piece of advice. And then we go from there.
So from hearing you, listening to you, there's some form of very transparency going on there. Very transparent to your clients, right? So I guess this is where Gerard comes in, right? So what measures does the exchange have in place to ensure transparency and the fairness in trading?
So the market operates as a regulated market, and we have rules and regulations that the brokers and the investors in the market have to follow. And those rules are public. We have them available on our website, so anybody can read those rules and see how they're supposed to be operating as a player in the market. So our role as the regulator of the market is to ensure that both the companies or the governments that are selling their securities on the market, as well as the investors that are purchasing the securities, operate with those rules. We also would, if necessary, we will take action against the broker dealers or the issuer, the company, if we ever pick up any activity that goes against the rules that we have established. We also make the information about companies public as available on our website. So that information is available in terms of the trade that we executed, the prices at which the securities closed, that any financial information about the company, material information about the company. All of that information is transparently available to the public, so that as an investor, you have the opportunity to review that information and make your own determination in terms of whether you want to buy or sell. Determine for yourself the value that you put in the securities, and then make the decision on whether you want to buy, sell, or continue to hold the security.
Okay. So this process will hold in the broker dealer totally responsible.
Most definitely.
Ensure that he keeps, in line, follows procedures and policy, right? But it's really good because my thing is, people work very hard for their money, right? And if you want to invest in something, you want to ensure that your investment is safe, it's secure, you give the right information, that person does not have to wonder if they will get their money back, or how the investment is going. So I like the fact that in terms of you're transparent. I like the fact that you can go on the website and read up. I like the fact that you have everything out there for the investors to see what is happening to my money and the different policies and procedures, right? And I have a great appreciation, of course, for KYC. So I'm happy that, you know your customer, right? You get to know your customer. And what I like about it, the relationship part of it, you get to know the person's risk appetite, their tolerance level, and then you recommend whatever product, services, investments. So that is critical, and I love that. So how do new investors assess their risk tolerance and why?
Okay, so as a new investor, your risk tolerance How do you assess it? We do the assessment for you.
Yeah.
But when you fill out the questionnaire, we assess it. But some people would be, it's a time horizon where they want a risky investment, but risky investments are long term, right? It's a risk and reward, right? That's what investment is, risk and reward. So the shorter term investments, those are considered less risky. All right, so investment for 1 year.
So give me a less
Mhm.
risky. Tell us about a less risky investment.
So a less risky investment at First Citizens, we offer what is called a fixed income paper. Okay, that investment, it only goes for the maximum a year and a half. We don't go beyond that. Okay, so that's a less risky investment. Reason being, it offers a fixed return as well. So the return is fixed, it doesn't fluctuate with the market, so you know exactly what your returns are from day one. Right? So you know the returns. Part two, it's very liquid. In terms of if you want the money today, tomorrow, life happens, we offer you that opportunity to get back your money. Yeah, emergency happens, right? But it also offers you compounding interest. Compounding is the eighth wonder of the world, as they say, right? So after year one, you get that money, you can compound it into year two. So if it's 5,000, 5,100, you add to it, so it compounds as well. So that's a low risk investment. It doesn't go up and down with the stock market, it's fixed. So,
What
for
about
example,
high risk investment?
a high risk investment,
Sure.
a lot, well, all long terms are not considered high risk. Some of them are considered medium risk. Like a bond that's 10 years, that's locked in with the government. That may give you a 7.5%, but the rate is fixed. Right? Or the stock market goes up, goes down, it's fixed. You can't come and say, Mr. David, I want 8% from a bond tomorrow. You're already locked in the 7.5%. Okay? Yeah. If you want a highly risky investment, you directly invest into the stock market. Right? That one you can do it with guidance from us, or if you have extensive knowledge, you can do that yourself. Right? That's where you go on the international stock market. That's where you go. Apple, the Google, those that go up, go down. You do your investments for yourself. Okay? So that's something that's in line.
Okay, great. I like what you mentioned that the Apple and the Google, because I realize in the Caribbean, we tend to want to invest, in those things. So I think, is Alusha available now? So we can chit chat. Hi. Well,
Hi,
how are you
good
this
afternoon.
afternoon?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm sorry about the delay in my participation.
We understand things happen, especially when we're dealing with the technology, right? But
Correct.
I'm coming to you, right? Because the time has reached for us to think about, the regulatory framework and so forth. So what is the primary role of the ECSRC? What is your role?
All right. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and it's so great to be here to be part of this wonderful and interesting, insightful presentation discussion. The Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission, the ECSRC for short. It's a long name, but we shorten it by referring to ourselves as the ECSRC. The ECSRC was established by an agreement among the member governments of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, of which St. Vincent and the Grenadines is one. And that agreement provides for the regulation and supervision. First of all, it creates the ECSRC as the national regulatory body for the securities market. And it also provides certain authority to the Commission to license persons and to regulate the ECSM. The securities market is governed, or securities business is governed by Securities Act, which is a piece of legislation that it has been enacted in all 8 of the ECCU member countries, including St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that piece of legislation is what we call a uniform piece of law, meaning that the provisions are all the same or similar throughout all the member countries. And that piece of legislation, along with the regulations that support it, provide the legislative framework or the regulatory framework for the regulation and supervision of the market. So first of all, it creates the ECSRC through the ECSRC agreement, which is also an appendix to the Securities Act. And that is in law. And we have the main piece of legislation being the Securities Act, which is a piece of legislation that has been passed in all the 8 member countries.
Okay, great. Now, from working in a financial institution, I know there's a lot of fraud going on right now, so can you, 2 things, right? I mean, you have to protect your investors, of course. So what protections are in place for individual investors, and how do these safeguards help keeping the transition from savings to investing?
Okay, excellent question. And I know listening to the discussion earlier, we spoke about Mr. David, I think Avery spoke about being licensed. So one of the key things that we do is license individuals and companies like broker-dealers, investment advisors to operate in the market. And by doing so, we make sure, and I'm glad to hear that Mr. Gavri spoke about integrity. The things that some persons feel that the licensing process is full of a number of what they call hurdles, but we look at it as safeguards more so, because we want to make sure that persons who are allowed to give people financial advice have the necessary qualifications, have the necessary skills and knowledge to be able to provide the level of investment advice that persons need to as they participate on the market, as they take their monies from their savings account to invest in securities. So the primary thing is licensing and making sure that these persons who are providing investment advice and helping persons to invest their monies are qualified to be able to do that. The other thing is that we make sure that those persons that we've licensed, and the Securities Act provides for it, that they operate to a certain standard, and they maintain throughout the licensing period, which is 1 year. Every license has to be renewed every year, that they maintain the standards, not just at the licensing stage, but throughout their whole operations. For broker dealers, they are required to maintain certain levels of capital to support their business. They also there are certain requirements in the law to make sure that they operate their business in a sound manner. And on this, as it relates to their interactions with their clients, we have regulations that speak to how they are supposed to engage with their clients. One I can think of the top of my head is where there's a conflict of interest. They would have to disclose that to their clients. Another is by segregating their assets. So a broker dealer, sometimes they invest for themselves and they invest for their clients. The law requires that the broker dealer keeps their accounts and their customers' assets separate, right? That's what we speak to when we say that your assets should be segregated. So there's no mixing of the broker dealer's assets with that of their retail clients. Another thing that we provide for is complaints. And I know we haven't gotten many complaints through the CSRC, and I'm hoping that maybe that's a good thing because there aren't that many happening. But one of the things that is also provided for in the law is that each broker that we license has a complaints procedure, which allows their retail clients and any of their clients to be able to come have a process or a procedure where they can report complaints if they have an issue with the way the broker would have dealt with them. They can go to the CSRC website sign up through and submit a complaint through our complaints portal. But of course, we expect that you would first of all go to the broker to try to get your issue resolved. So these are just some of the few areas that I can think of. There are many more, but these are some of the things that are permitted in the law to allow to protect investors once they're moving from savings and getting into that investment market, the securities market. Sorry.
Felicia, thank you for that. But what common scams or pitfalls should a
Right.
new investor be aware of, and how
Yes.
do they protect themselves? This is
Okay, great.
critical. I really would like to know. So most of us here will love to know, how do we avoid the scams and the pitfalls?
Yes. Right. So one of the things I can think about, we all hear about cryptocurrency. I know a lot of us, especially young persons, we hear about Bitcoin, we hear about digital assets, all different kinds of assets. Those digital. We live now in a technologically advanced age, and everything now we talk about is digital and technology based. And there are lots of cryptocurrencies, crypto assets that are being marketed now. And what we're saying to persons is that you be very, very careful when you invest. These types of products are very volatile. When I say volatile, what I mean is that the price or the change in value can move very, very quickly in any direction. So at one point, you may be very, very high, the price may go up, or the value may go very high very quickly, and it can fall just as quickly. So that's what we mean when we say that these types of investments are volatile. In terms of what really creates the value, right? What creates the value is persons. It's based on persons trading in those types of investments. There's no sometimes you have a security that may have a supporting asset that really dictates or speaks to how the value moves. In some of those instances, there is no underlying asset, right, on which the value of that currency is based, or that type of digital asset is based. So it's persons need to be very, very wary about investing in those types of instruments. And again, we have to look at the regulation. Are those products regulated? Are they licensed? And that is critical as well. We also have something that is very common in our jurisdiction, what we call Ponzi schemes. And what is a Ponzi scheme is that it is a type of investment vehicle that if essentially uses the funds that are invested by the last client to pay off by later clients to pay off earlier clients. And you can tell now that this formula, right, will at some point fall or break down, because you'll never have enough investors joining at the end to be able to repay all those persons who would have joined, right? The formula, the math just doesn't work. And we see a lot of that. I believe in 2020, around COVID, we had a lot of persons who were associated with religious groups in St. Vincent, in St. Lucia, in St. Kitts, inviting persons through YouTube and Facebook to these kinds of seminars, what they call investment seminars, where they would speak to them about these types of investments. And essentially, when we found out, we had to issue warnings to the public about those types of investments. These types of schemes are very risky, and they are not legitimate investments. You may have a scheme where persons tell you that if you invest now, you'll get a return like tomorrow, and there's no risk, right? to ask, one, every investment has a risk. There's risk in every investment. And the higher the risk, they tell you that's the higher the return means that there's more risk. So you should be wary of that. So these are just a few of some of the schemes and the scams that we've seen and we are familiar with in our jurisdiction.
They are very prevalent because before you sign on to IG or you you see all these new, friend
Yes.
requests regarding investments and cryptocurrency
Right.
and so forth.
And just one other one. There's something called forex trading.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Enlighten
And
us.
yeah, I would have to speak about that because there are number of companies and websites and persons who are online telling you that you can just click on a link and you are able to join this community that will teach you about investing and you can earn a lot of money from doing forex trading. Forex trading is very, very, very risky. Essentially, what it is betting on changes in the exchange rates of various currency. It is more or less gambling. And while it may make money for some persons, you have to be very careful of getting involved in that type of activity because you may lose, not may, in more than over 50% of the cases that we are aware of, ordinary investors will lose their money. So if persons are inviting you to forex to sign up for forex trading, I would be very wary of doing that because it is a highly, highly, highly risky activity.
Thank you for that. So, given that the scammers are more prevalent these days, now how do you keep the Caribbean community informed? Like, what sort of tools or platforms does the commission recommend for investors to stay informed and about the market conditions and the regulatory changes and the scammers?
Right. So first of all, the securities laws provide safeguards, one, for investors. Two, you have your broker dealers and the commission's website. So your brokers, your investment advisors who are licensed by the commission can provide you with the necessary support and information and advice that you would need if someone approaches you about an investment. First of all, let me say that if an entity or an individual approaches anyone or to invest, the first thing you would ask is, do you have, particularly if it is for selling shares, do you have an approved prospectus, meaning a prospectus that has been approved by the commission to allow you to sell those shares to me? You also need to find out whether the people you are speaking to, those persons who are selling you that product, whether they themselves are licensed by the commission. And in order to find that out, you can go onto our website and it's right here on the screen, ecsrc.com, and to see whether those persons who you are engaging with are actually licensed by the commission. They're also on the commission's website. We have a section dedicated to investors where we have information on various types of schemes, frauds and scams. And it tells you what the red flags are and what to look for in an investment fraud. So we do have those, that information available on our website. And of course, you also have the resources available through your broker dealers and through the licensed investment advisors that are operating in the market. And of course, you can always call the ECSRC directly online. Send us an email, telephone, and let us know what is happening. If there's something going on in St. Vincent that you think the commission needs to know about as it relates to investing and investments, and you can always let us know through those channels.
I think as the Caribbean as a whole, maybe we need to be a little bit more proactive in advising, the persons that of the scammers because it's just too prevalent, and I find so many persons are being affected now more so than ever. We need to change the narrative. We must find
Yeah.
some way in which we can use a proactive approach to get the word out there as to not to do this, not to do that, this is what
Yes.
a scam looks like. I
Yes.
think it should be the next step that we should
Yes.
take.
And on it, we use social media as well. We do use our social media pages. We have LinkedIn, Facebook, on X, and we would periodically provide information about investments, investing, and various topics through our social media pages as well. We issue warning notices as well. Because I do agree with you that we really need to be a little more proactive in providing information, and that we will take on board and do as well.
Okay, great. So, of course, market trends, right? So before we take just a short break, right? We're just gonna let's speak about what the emerging trends are and in the investing landscape, of course, and what should savers be aware of as they consider becoming investors?
Um, in terms of trends, I think I would have mentioned about the digitalizing of the securities market. I think comes to mind is the tokenization of securities, the ECSE, and I think Jaron can speak a little more about that. The ECSE is about to launch a tokenized securities market. I'm not sure if I'm speaking out of tune here, Jaron. You can let me know. We have that will soon be coming on stream. So that is one of the areas that's trending there. We see a lot of technology being used to enhance securities market operations, but some of these have not yet come into our jurisdiction. For example, we know of what we call robo advisors. These are what we call electronic versions of mechanisms that give persons investment advice. We also have, you know, allowing persons the ability to go online on their own and put through their trades. So we're hoping that at some point that will come through to our market where persons will be able to. And we've heard people asking about it. So these are things that we are looking at by allowing persons, the ability to access the market, put through their trades. There'll still be the need for a broker because it has to be settled after you put it through, but it gives people more control over their investing and their investments. And of course, to implement that, it comes with a lot of financial education about investing through forums like these that we're doing now to allow persons to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Jaron, what's in the horizon?
So, as Ms. Riza mentioned, the ECSE is looking at launching a tokenized securities market based on blockchain technology. So that is where a lot of interest has been in the more developed markets. We are also moving into that space where we will be operating a regulated market based on that technology. The benefits that we see for investors in the region is that it opens up our market to companies that previously would not have been interested in having their securities listed in the Eastern Caribbean. So just like blockchain has opened up a lot of developed institutional investors in the more developed markets to appreciating the benefits of blockchain, we've also seen companies and that would have not been interested in listing on an exchange or now being interested in being listed on a tokenized securities market. So working with our partner with the platform, our brokers have had the opportunity to look at potential issues coming from other countries outside of the region that are now interested in listing in our market. So when that market is launched, we expect to have some companies coming from outside of the region bringing new securities into our market. providing investors with the opportunity to diversify their portfolio, have access to additional companies, additional securities, and we hope that the younger persons in the region would also be excited by that new development and will start investing in our market locally instead of looking to the other markets outside of the region.
I was about to get to that because I find if like the young people, the younger generation, this is a technological world, right? And I think that's why the scammers are getting through. Because if you go online and you could easily speak to a so-called broker and invest, or get into cryptocurrency and so forth, because it shows that is where they want to go. That is the era we're in. But how are we in the Caribbean making that possible for young investors?
So in addition to the launching that new market, we do recognize that as an exchange between ourselves and the brokers, we need to be more accessible to the broker, make the market more accessible to them. So one of the areas that we have been looking at is providing online access to the investors. So it's something that is kind of in the early stages of discussion, but it's something that we do see value in. So along with ourselves, the commission and our brokers, that's something that we plan to put some effort into. And hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be able to announce to the region that our market is moving to that next level where where the investors are able to have more control over the orders that enter into the market and real-time access to monitoring their portfolios, getting information on payments, dividends, or other payments that they would have received on their investments.
Yeah, because I have an 8-to-4 job.
Yeah.
Right? And I will not be able to leave office to go to a broker dealer. Right? When I get home, I'm doing all my online banking, I'm paying my bills, I'm doing everything else. I should be able to have an opportunity to look at investments and see what I want to do. So I think this is where we need to go in order for us to always be ahead of the scammers, and because it's the opportunity. They see there is an opportunity and they have capitalized, but unfortunately they are the scammers, right? So let's step ahead of them.
Yep.
All right. So to our listening audience out there on YouTube, Facebook, we thank you very much. Since who are about to invest and of course advanced investors, we do have a couple of questions. And first, I will attempt to take the question from our in-house audience, someone who's in our audience. One moment, please. Let's get some volume. We have a slight technical challenge. We're going to get over that in just a couple of seconds. There we go.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I started on this and I have curiosity about how I could invest, right? And I was attracted by something that one of the guests talked today, that it was towards more risk-tolerant investors. And after I asked, I know what it is called as fixed income paper or repurchase agreements, and I want to know or ask the guest to shed a light on it. What are the usual returns in terms of interest or the risk that the investors pose on this, and a little more detail on that appeals. It looks appealing.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the fixed income paper, that's an investment product that First Citizens offers. It's a low risk investment, as you mentioned. It's a fixed return for a fixed period of time. It offers you liquidity. It offers you compound interest. So for 1 year, let's say you do it for 1 year as an investor, you start off with, say, $10,000. That's a lot. Do it for 5. Okay, not a bit. All right. So you do that for 1 year. After the year, you get the interest on the 5,000. So your $150 interest. That $150 is added to the 5,000, and then you can roll that amount. But you can also add to it at the end of the 1 year. Okay, so it's considered a low risk investment because it runs for 1 year. It's also secured by a government bond. The ECSD is our custodian for those bonds. So in the event anything happens, your investment is also secured by the ECSD. All right? Yes.
Thank you very much for that. What is the minimum though you can invest?
So the minimum for it can vary along the investment instrument.
Right.
For example, a fixed income paper, government bond, a treasury bill, those are 5,000. For mutual fund, the UTC can be 100 US to start. For
100 US.
100 US, as well as 100 US.
Reachable.
Yeah. For Bank of St. Lucia, they have the mutual fund. This minimum is 200 US. Okay. There is also, as he would have mentioned, businesses across the Caribbean you can invest in. There's a minimum quantity of 20 shares you can buy in a company to start, but the share prices vary. Their USBG, as he mentioned in the listed, if it's $10 per share and 20 shares, that's just $200 to start investing. So it's not, you don't need $1 million to start investing. You can start with a small amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Dawn, can I jump in?
You increase.
Yes,
Mm.
please.
We have another question?
I think Ms. Fraser,
I think, yes, hi. Yeah, Mr. David, in explaining the products, the repurchase agreement, he said that the CSE is the custodian and that it also provides some sort of security for that. Just wanted to say that the ECSE is just the custodian of the underlying asset. So that is its role, merely holds and controls the asset that are underlying those securities. Doesn't provide any additional safety, which is what I think we have said. It's just to clarify. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We also have a question from one of our online viewers, Timothy Providence. And his question is, or statement, basic financial literacy is lacking in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. What is the plan of ECCB and ECSRC in helping to address this deficiency?
Yes, excellent question again, and thank you for that question, Mr. Providence. One of the things that the ECSRC has recognized, and last year we held some stakeholder consultations with persons in the ECSM who have been operating. We had a few retail investors who were also in those meetings as well. And some of the things that came out of those consultations is the need for persons to have more information about the market and about investing and to learn more about how the market operates to assist them in with making their financial decisions. So we do recognize as ECSRC that this is an area that we need to do a lot more work in. And in our strategic plan, we have outlined a number of initiatives where we will be engaging with the ECCB, the ECSC, and other players in the market to sort of develop strategies and go and proceed and things like this, like panel discussions and educational initiatives to provide information to persons and to teach them a little more about the market. On the ECCB side, the ECCB a few years ago completed a financial literacy survey, and coming out of that survey, they would have provided or obtained certain level of insight into the level of financial literacy in all of the ECCU member countries that participated in that survey, and they are now in the process of developing. They've put a committee together, and they are in the process of developing a strategy to address some of the deficiencies that they would have identified in that survey. But for the ECSRC, for us, we will be working with a number of our partners because, of course, we have our resource constraints. But we will be working with partners such as the OECS Commission, the Ministries of Education, the ECCB, I said, and as well ECSC and some of our other stakeholders as we aim to educate persons because we cannot do it ourselves. So we'll be enlisting and partnering with those that we can to assist us in implementing some of the strategies that we have on our books. And of course, things like this, panel discussions, webinars, are some of those areas that we will be some of those things that we will be using to do that.
Thank you for that answer. You have something to
Yeah,
add?
just wanted to add, yeah. So we are all here, the commissioners representing the broker dealers and the exchange. So we all recognize it's an all hands on deck effort to increase the level of education, financial literacy in the region. So every year we have the central bank, we work with the central bank on their financial information month where we do events like this to get the information out there. And we have at the ECSC, we have regular meetings, bilateral meetings with all our broker dealers to discuss ways that we can, or different initiatives that we can implement in the various countries to reach to get to the public, the potential investors or the existing investors to help generate interest in the market and increase the level of activity that we see. So as we go on into the rest of this year, into the next year, we will see a lot more of these kind of activities taking place because we all recognize it's something that we desperately need to do.
Yes, correct. I know annually every October is Financial Literacy Month, throughout the Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean. However, as Mr. Providence says, financial literacy is lacking and we can do better, right? I do not think we should wait until October to really rev up and ramp up our literacy talks and programs and so forth. So maybe we can start every quarter, because if the population is asking for it, because remember, those fraudsters, they are a couple of steps well ahead of us, right? And if we want to move our savers to investors, we need to create that safe space for them to do that and not to be attacked by the online, broker dealers and the cryptocurrency and all that jazz. So having said that, I think we really do need to take a proactive approach with the literacy and strive to do it at least start off every 3 months, and then October can be our, that month where we have all these celebrations and awards and, in a big granular way. But now we should be going to the schools, starting at even primary school, the CPA form school children start there because we are preparing them to go to the secondary school. And then in secondary school, we as the next step is college and university and going out there. But if we send our young people out into the world without having proper financial literacy, cannot make decisions, good, sound financial decisions, then we are in the wrong. We're going the wrong way, right? So tell me, what sort of proactive approach can we take as the Eastern Caribbean? Tell me, what can we do to make a difference going forward?
I mean, some of the things that you just mentioned are some of the things that we have spoken about in the feedback that we've received from sessions ideas that we've held with the members of the public. One has been to have them more often, and have them in just broaden our reach to go into countries even where we don't have a broker dealer. Even though these sessions are available in those countries, physical presence is always good to reach to the investor. So that's some feedback that we've received as well. Going into the schools as well is something that we've also heard about. So just for us to work with all our stakeholders to come up with a plan and work towards implementing.
Yeah, I was about to say that you cannot do it alone. So clearly you need partners. You need the banks, you need the credit unions, right? But it has to start somewhere because they are asking for it. Right? So we need to do a better job. I think that's where we're really, not doing such a fantastic job by not giving persons the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to make sound financial advice. I should not just wait until, this session is happening for me to come. It should be at my fingertips. So whether you have the website and persons do not know about the website, so maybe you can promote that more so they can go on and click and learn different links that you have. It's a learning session for an individual. However, we need to filter in this information into the schools, and that's where it starts. Once it's in the school population, we on the right track, and the impact that it's gonna create is gonna be magnificent. So let's start somewhere. Mr. David, what do you have to say as our broker dealer? Tell me.
We, as the broker dealer, we have many initiatives that we do for our clients. One of the main one we realize is that first citizens, we treat you as family, right? So as family, we mean that you're an investor, you have kids, we encourage you to bring them to us. Let's reach out to them. So that's family. So it doesn't just stop at you invest and your kids don't benefit. So that's what we realize that's been happening, like just the adults interested, So we're trying to get that initiative along. So at First Citizens, I would say we are family, we put people first. So that's one of the initiatives we're trying to bring on board.
Okay, great. Lucia, do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
Just to say that the initiative by ECSC for the Regional Schools Investment Competition is one way of getting into the schools. I do agree with you that we need to start from, as early as possible. So some of the initiatives that we will try to undertake, and I do will try to reach those school children. And of course, I do agree with you as well that financial literacy is not a 1 month thing. It should be done. I think there should be some sort of activity happening every month, right? And not just every quarter, but at least you keep that in the forefront of people's minds so that they are aware about it, they learn about it, and they want to learn more about it. So these are some of the things, just some of the points I wanted to add.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I believe that this session was a good session. I learned a lot myself as the moderator for the different options. And of course, I feel very comfortable that there are regulations out there and, the investors, there are safeguards where you can safeguard the investors, protect us. I like the fact there's transparency, which is very important because, as I said, as an investor, I want to know what I can and where I can invest my money, the safe space for investing my funds, right? So, and I understand the importance of the broker dealer as well. So, Mr. David, it is probably something you can, get the word out there as to what to do and get other persons on board to be certified, right? So they can do the right thing. And I want to thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your contribution this evening. For educating us, for educating the audience. We appreciate your knowledge that you would have bestowed on us. And I want to again acknowledge the Managing Director of the Eastern Caribbean Securities Market, Mr. Trevor Blake. We thank you for joining with us virtually. And Alusha, thank you so much for your contribution and the important role that you play in the regulatory framework. So, audience, thank you for joining us this evening. It was a great session, and we trust that you will read up a lot, right? So now that you know, you can go on the website and read and educate yourself so you can make better, sound financial decisions. Pleasant good afternoon to each and every one of you. It's been a pleasure to be your moderator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.